everyone, my name is Ruby Powers. Today we're going to be talking about if you're losing TPS, what your legal options and next steps are. This is in June 2025. I'm a board certified immigration attorney in Texas, and with Powers Law Group, we're able to assist individuals navigating immigration all over the US, all over the world on US immigration matters. And we'll go ahead and proceed. So, temporary protected status has been around the United States for a very long time, and it's a humanitarian program that allows nationals from designated countries to live and work in the U.S. during temporarily unsafe times in their home country. And the designations have been made by Department of Homeland Security to be extended or terminated based on certain circumstances. It itself does not lead to legal permanent residency, but sometimes there can be opportunities between advanced parole and being able to be in the United States, work, improve their status, their resume, their options, their financial situation that could lead to potential other options and being here in the United States and having their family here. So recently of this month, DHS has announced terminations for several countries, including temporary for Afghanistan, ending July 14th, 2025, Venezuela under the 2023 designation, affecting approximately 472,000 individuals. But there have been extensions granted for El Salvador and Ukraine at this point for later into 2026. But it's important to stay up to date, watch all of the different extensions and terminations. And between the fact that some countries have been getting terminated on the TPS, that has made a lot of people uneasy as to whether or not that might happen to their country's designation as well. So when the TPS ends, beneficiaries return to immigration status that they had before and or any other status they had may acquired while on TPS. Without any other status, they may become undocumented and subject to removal. It's essential to explore other options and do so in advance of time. That's why we wanted to do today's webinar. So to make it a little bit simple, I sort of divided up into like family-based potential options, like marriage or a relative petitioning for you, like a spouse or a sibling. Then there's also employment-based, which is a little bit more complex, but it can be possible. There's asylum, there's other programs like the victims of crime, abuse, T visa, trafficking, and there's also an immigration court, different forms of relief if you happen to be in immigration court. Now, on family-based options, there's a lot of different options. Some of them you could apply while you're here. It really comes down to how did you enter? What is the relationship that you have to a citizen or legal permanent resident? Are you an immediate relative? How long ago was the case filed? Is the visa almost available? Just in general, if you and how did you enter? I said that already, but basically, if you entered legally or you have a qualifying parole or advanced advanced parole, then you're married to a U.S. citizen for an immediate relative, all other things being equal, no other inadmissibility issues, you could be able to adjust inside the country. But there's a lot of different complications and changes. So please, please, please have a consultation to evaluate your options. And if it's not an immediate relative, then you're looking at very likely a longer wait. And you need to be able to see, will you still qualify depending on whether or not you have a status or not, depending on when the TPS is discontinued. Just because you have an I-130 pending alone, which is the petition for alien relative, it does not confer a status inside the country while you wait. So keep that in mind. We mentioned advanced parole right now because it is one of the options that's allowed under TPS. But there are some risks and there's some complications, especially having a valid passport, which in some cases, a lot of Venezuelans and some other individuals do not have valid passports, and just it can make it more complicated. But this is also important. It's ideal to have a legal entry. So if an individual came in illegally or without inspection and then could apply for advanced parole under TPS and travel, come back in with a legal entry, then that can provide more opportunities for future forms of relief. But that it complex on your individual situation. So that being said, If you were to enter without inspection, get the TPS, get the advanced parole, travel, come back in, and your child is 21, a U.S. citizen, and petitions for you, we have to evaluate all other issues, but in general, it should work if you have no other issues. Sometimes we've seen this where people have deportation orders in immigration court. That complicates things because you're not supposed to file the I-45 with USCIS if you are under court jurisdiction. Anyway, that's another conversation, but we'll get to that in a second. But things to be aware of, adjustment of status would be ideal, but you need to have be legally entered, have an approved immigration petition, and be admissible and not be out of status, depending on whether it's an immediate relative or not. Now, moving over to employment-based options, this really can depend on a lot of different factors. We're hearing a lot of people talking to us about potentially H-1B or PERM. So the PERM process, labor certification, you test the labor market, you try to see is anyone else capable of doing that position, and it's led by your employer. That can take a couple of years, and then there also could be an audit that could take longer, so you have to keep that in mind. Generally, a lot of factors, this gets complicated because you need to have had a legal entry, you need to not have any unlawful presence time, you need to maintain the status. You need to have, if you could change status inside the country is one amazing option if you could. If not, then you would need to leave the country, obtain the other visa, and to come back in. But you also need to make sure that you have a backup plan in case that visa does not get approved at the consulate, and you need to have a valid passport to be able to get back in. That's just a small summary of like what the considerations when we would do an employment-based alternative consultation. And so it does, there's a lot of moving parts. Oh, and one other thing, if individual had applied for asylum, we from a country, we wouldn't want them traveling back to the country that they applied for asylum from to do consular processing. Okay, now basics of asylum basically comes down to past persecution and or fear of future persecution on a one of five grounds, protected grounds: the race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. So even though in Spanish it says asilo político, it does not mean that we're talking about only political opinion. You also need to apply within 1 year. You need to prove that you cannot relocate anywhere in your home country and that you couldn't go to some other you didn't have any other citizenship or other country you could go to. So I don't know what people think, but asylum can be very difficult to obtain. But you can apply for it affirmatively if you're not in court, and you can apply for it defensively if you are in court. Moving on to immigration court, we have also, you can apply for lots of different forms of relief. One of them is asylum, like we just mentioned. Another is cancellation of removal. Now, this one would apply if you were losing a TPS and you've been here a long time. If you've been here 10 years or more before you get a certain crime that could stop the clock and or being put in immigration court, and you have extreme and unusual hardship to a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, spouse, parent, or child, then you could pursue cancellation of removal. There's also potentially adjustment of status, but like I mentioned before, you cannot file, you would file the I-130 or the I-140 with USCIS and the 45 with the immigration court. And there's also the humanitarian visas like T visa and U visa, but under the current administration, they are not, because the U visa pending could be 15 years or more. The administration's not letting people currently let that be a reason to postpone court results while waiting for the U visa to become available. So when you have TPS, you're allowed work authorization, but once the TPS ends, the work authorization does expire as well. And so unless you have another form of relief with another work authorization validity, then your work authorization expires. And in many states, that means your driver's license will also expire at the same time. So be aware of that. That now, if you have a social security number, that social security number is yours for your whole life in the United States. So that's one good thing. Now it is important, and we're talking mostly to people who might be losing their TPS status or that it's being discontinued. But if TPS is ending, you you want to make sure, like when we say ending, we mean like before it before it ends and you're allowed to re-register, then re-register. But if it's being discontinued, you cannot re-register. And so those are things to note. Um, Now let's say your TPS is going to end sometime and is not being renewed. Then you want to have a consultation and evaluate your options as soon as possible. Today, we're talking about a lot of different potential options. In many cases, people might be eligible for one or two of what we're talking about, and but it takes time to put these plans in place. So the sooner that they know what those options are and do research and evaluate them, the sooner that they can figure out what will work. So if you do have unlawful presence time, this can, or if you, it can lead up to bars for reentry and make you ineligible for other benefits. So this is why you want to make sure you have a plan before that you could have a plan and put it in place before your TPS expires. There are some community groups up there who are trying to be a resource. There were a lot of cuts in funding. And so you have to, there might be take longer to respond or to be available, but you want to reach out to a community, see who you can help, who can be of help. But I mean, honestly, having a consultation with an experienced immigration attorney will assess your other options available, the likelihood of those to go forward, how long it will take, how much it'll cost, and can guide you through that process. Another possibility is to go to another country that's not your home country and not the United States. Another possibility is to prepare for a process and to come back to the United States at some point in the future, which completely could be possible if you have a US born child, and or you have a perm process that's taking a while and you want a consular process. But that's why it's important to make sure you don't have unlawful presence time, you don't work illegally, and you keep your address up to date as well. So be monitoring our social media, from LinkedIn to TikTok to Facebook to Instagram, all that fun stuff, to USCIS.gov website, Department of Homeland Security, and other places to monitor what's going on. And make sure that you're keeping up to date with your records so that if at any point you need to explain that you did maintain your status, your employment history, and everything, that you would have that information available. If you don't keep a copy of your documents with immigration, then you would have to do a Freedom of Information Act request, which could take months to get a copy of. So that's another thing, to have your civil documents, your taxes, and your immigration documents scanned and organized so that you can have that in case you needed that for future applications, to talk with an immigration attorney, and just your peace of mind. Now we understand losing TPS is challenging, especially if you've been relying on it for quite a while. People come here, they buy houses and cars and build a life. They have their children in school, they start businesses, it's hard to get uprooted yet again. And so we just really wanted to be a resource for you, to let you know about these options, and that the importance of making a plan. Don't come at the last minute. We're not sure which other TPS programs are going to be discontinued in the future. So here at Powers Law Group, we are available. We're bilingual. We're able to explain a lot of these complex matters. We have consultations. We are full service, so that means employment-based, investment-based, removal, immigration court, asylum, family, complex citizenship, lots of different options. So the more we're able to evaluate the entire process here, because of we have a lot of complex cases, and we've seen a lot of complex cases with these TPS ending type of conversations. We also represent people in court all over the country. So even if you're in another state, we can still represent you. And feel free to give us a call at 713-589-2085, 713-589-2085, and you can schedule a consult on our website, rubypowerslaw.com. We have some more webinars coming up, and want to be able to give you those resources available. So feel free to share our resources with others, as we want to be available to community. Tell your friends about us, register to log into our newsletter that we send out every other week in English and Spanish. My name is Ruby Powers. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.